there seems to be an elephant in the room. An elephant in the room. Let's just think about that. There seems to be a topic which cannot be discussed in good quarters. And that topic I return to is the notion of how does this thing end? I tried, not even really tried, I kind of floated elements of this in Model Rail Radio last night. I was feeling a little bit nihilistic, and the thoughts of callers from all over the world with all different views on the pandemic and, all this thing kind of came together to me. And I put out the idea that I thought the real virus that needed to be cured was the political system, was politicians, was the whole thing around this, because that seemed to be divorcing us, making us immune, delegating, perhaps, the harder conversation associated with how this thing will end. And it strikes me as really very strange when you have circumstances where the conversation about how something ends seems to be relatively critical, that it's just completely and utterly avoided in discussions. I mean, the way this thing ends currently is everyone goes back to work, everyone goes back to school, everyone resumes things, and then periodically people are just killed off. The way it ends is you ignore it, and then you just watch people die. That's the way this thing has ended. Like, the notion that there's actually an end to this thing, or that there's a productive way one can move towards an end with it, not really actively discussed. I mean, there are various points of kind of commercial mythology, which I find fascinating. I mean, the vaccine discussion stuff is absolutely fascinating. And in contrast to the vaccine discussion, and since I last recorded, The Lancet has come out with some independent stuff associated with herd immunity, and the fact that this herd immunity thing is just a complete myth with regards to this virus. So all the positivity that comes through the vaccine press releases, the spin associated with the vaccines, and there are a variety of them. Each of them has their own university backing it and all this kind of stuff. I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me. It's not that it doesn't sit well with me because it doesn't agree with the apocalypse that I foresee coming. There's no rational scrutiny that one could put in these press releases currently. It's a matter for them to actually get to the process where they're doing mass testing, and then we'll see what the results are, and none of them are at that stage yet. I'm also very mindful that I went to school with a fellow who had shrunken arms. Speeding through a vaccine without adequate testing means that there's a potential there for consequences that no one knows or can ascertain in the first 6 months or a year or 2 years or these kind of things. So it just strikes me that we're all, in one form or another, either going to be locked down or stay in place for one's own personal safety for the foreseeable future. And the foreseeable future is now going into years. So through all of this, through Model Rail Radio, through talking with people in states that are still not adhering to lockdown, personal preferences, etc., I started to just wonder how one actually even has the adult discussion associated with how this thing is going to end. And I think that's a really important thing. I think the absence of ways to have meaningful discussions always seems to focus back on political circumstances. I think the nature of politics is almost religious in nature, that the underlying fundamentals of a political discussion can never actually be fully fleshed out because it's agreed upon some personal agreement between societies that you will not actually get back to fundamentals and ask detailed questions associated with circumstances, because that, then I don't know what you are in that circumstance. It makes, I guess, political discussions just impossible to have. So anyway, as I watch this thing happen, I reflect really heavily that the endgame scenarios after 2, 3, 4 years of this circumstance are going to be really very curious. And in my own situation, hopefully, for however long one can hold a job in these circumstances, but I can put money on the fact that those around me, the community in which I live, the situation will get far worse for these people sooner, unless something goes terribly wrong with my life. And that is the real difficulty when the delta, poverty, hopelessness, despair becomes a really meaningful delta, then this is where it gets really concerning. And of course, no one is talking about that. Well, the beauty of it is that there'll be a perfectly heavily funded police department not doing anything. I can rely on the police being paid but not being there. So yes, that is the immediate fear that I have, that in the degradation of circumstances, the likelihood of unpleasant things happening is relatively high. So it's just a matter of seeing when that actually occurs, whether it occurs after the $600 doesn't turn up, whether it occurs, 6 months after that, a year after that, or 3 months. That is the time frames that I'm just considering currently. With the view that as things deteriorate, obviously I'm going to have to make changes. I'm going to have to investigate and make changes through this period if things deteriorate. And that we've had kind of twinges of already. So that's the really interesting part for me. It's not the elephant in the room associated with the discussion that can't be had. It's that in absence of having that discussion, whatever chaos will come to fill the void will certainly be there. So rest assured, if I can put out audio, I will try to document some of this. And I have to say, Joe the drummer, our listener, I put out an audio piece the day following giving questions or answers for Joe the drummer. And it was too much of the same thing. And it was basically recovering what I'd said in the previous recording. So although I passed on the audio to Joe, I made the point to him that I probably wasn't going to put that audio out. I don't think it really added to it. It just basically reinforced the things that I had said in the previous recording. So now I need to wonder how I edit a model rail radio, which I'll probably be editing in 3 or 4 weeks' time, to see what I actually include in it. We'll have to wait and see, 3 or 4 weeks' time.